Welcome to Business Connect, a podcast produced and presented by the City of Miramar in the great state of Florida, the gateway to the Caribbean and Latin America. This podcast airs every third Thursday in the month at 7 p.m. and brings you information, tips, and ideas from experts to take your business to the next level. We also get to hear from folks who have done it all and can share insights with you. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host, Johnny Douglas.
Welcome to the City of Miramar's Business Connect, where we connect your business to what's important. My name is Johnny Douglas, and I'm your host for today. Today we have a fascinating show. We have I have a guest speaker today with me. Her name is Miss Olivia Benson, Esquire. Welcome, Miss Benson. How are you today?
I am well and so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, we are so excited that you're here.
Yes.
Now, one of the topics that we have that we don't want to talk about all the time is estate planning.
Yes.
And most of us think on the personal side that it's a good thing to do.
Yes.
But in actuality, it is very important to do it even on the business side.
That's correct. Can save a lot of time, a lot of suffering, and a lot of money.
Exactly. So I'm glad we have you here because I would love for our listening audience to understand as business owners that maybe you should concentrate on that just a little bit more as you start with your business planning and going to get all the other things you need to start your business with. Why not concentrate on that as well?
Yes.
So I'll have you lead in now and also with your disclaimer.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Well, let me say a couple of things. First of all, I've been in practice for almost 35 years. And right here in South Florida, I graduated from University of Miami, undergrad and law school. So I'm South Florida, all the way. So I was in practice initially doing litigation, business litigation and commercial litigation. And approximately the last 20 years, I've been doing everything related to probate, estates, trust, and wealth. But I want to say this for everybody that's listening. Everything that we talked about today, and this is my disclaimer, everything that we will talk about today is just general because we can't really give legal advice unless we have particulars, unless I read a piece of paper or you give me a piece of paper and then I can give you advice. But I think that this subject is super important, and as we were talking before, I think even for myself, when I started my business, there were things that I didn't do because I wasn't sure that I had the money to do it. I was concerned because the money had to go to the, to the payroll and to the day-to-day operations. So we understand that. If you just started a business and you're just trying to get it off the ground, maybe you should, I'm just saying, but maybe you're not ready for estate planning and thinking about what would happen if something happens to the major players in the business. But let's just say you're 5 years down the road. Now things are settled. You made it through the first year, you made it through the third year, and now things are rolling along. What would happen, let's just say, if something happened to you? That is a major deal. Now, the simplest thing that I can say to you that happens all the time is that in the business context, whether it's a corporation, an LLC, a partnership, the first question is, where are the books? Those books that you get when you pay your $400 or $500 and they send you a whole package, those are the books that say how things are to go. What if you are the managing partner and the documents don't say what happens when the managing partner passes away? What happens is that the statutes will govern, which means that you're out of control. As opposed to if you did some planning, right, then you would say, I'm the managing partner, and if something happens to me, this is what I want to happen. And that's a big, big difference to just let it fall, right? As opposed to you reading through your documents or getting a lawyer to read it through or make sure that it says what you want and then managing what would happen.
Ms. Benson, a lot of things that businesses go through when they're starting up. First of all, they're so excited.
Yes.
That they finally got the business plan worked out. They finally got seed money. They got everything they need to start this business. And I believe there's a lot of levels of business opportunities and steps that they might have missed. One of them is very important, is what we're talking about now, which is estate planning for their business. And I'm glad I have you on the show today, because there are probably a lot of stories that you can share with us on the consequences of not paying that money up front, versus to having to pay it on the back end because you didn't prepare for it.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that business struggle with is what you alluded to already, expenses.
Yes.
Okay, this is going to cost me too much money. It's going to take from my startup seed to actually start my business. How do I balance that? How do I make that? How do lawyers, when they talk to different lawyers, kind of work this out, that the business owners can feel more comfortable paying that out for their protection?
Right. Well, there are a couple of things. First of all, I always say to people that choosing a lawyer, to me, is the same as choosing a doctor, because it has to be somebody that you trust. And I know people have all kinds of jokes about lawyers and how they believe lawyers can be dishonest or whatever the case might be. But they're honest lawyers and people who want to do right by you and so on. So I will give you an example. Today, I spoke to a gentleman who he called and he said to me, I want to do a trust and I want to do holding companies and I want to, do sub-holding companies. I mean, all kinds. That's how he started. And I said, well, what kind of trust? Are you talking about an irrevocable trust or a revocable trust? Or what are you trying to accomplish or whatever? So in the end, to make a long story short, it turns out he doesn't really have a company. Right? It's not like he had a business and now he's saying, I want to put this business. Somebody said to him that he should put things in a trust, which, yes, a revocable trust is a tool that you can use for estate planning, right? You could put your house in a revocable trust, just like you could put a business in a revocable trust. But the important thing relevant to your question is that when somebody calls me like that, I have to say to him, and his wife got on the phone, by the way, the two of them were on the phone. I have to say, well, first of all, you have to understand that what you're trying to accomplish has to make sense in the context of what your assets are, right?
Okay.
So if you tell me you want to do, if you have, let's just make up a number. If you tell me you have $1 million and you would put those assets in a trust, and it's going to cost 10% of that to manage it, I'm not sure you're there yet. Okay. Now, if you want to talk about major trusts, irrevocable, and all kinds of things, which we hear about, big families, they have trusts and things like that are managed by banks and trust companies. The trust company is making at least 10% on the millions of dollars every year. Right. So it has to make financial sense in terms of what you're willing to spend to get it done. Maybe some lawyers might say, yeah, let's do the trust and let's do the holding companies and let's do the LLCs and whatever. But I like to sleep at night. I like to sleep at night. Right. And so I'm not interested in getting somebody to spend money that they don't have when it's not necessary. So I think you said this a few minutes ago, it's levels, right?
Right.
So you're starting, okay, what do I have? I have this company and I want to make sure that if something happens to me, I don't have to go to probate, which is the big part, right? So if I put it in the trust, revocable or irrevocable, but usually revocable, now that trust can direct what happens with that particular asset. But it's about what makes financial sense at a particular time. Because if he comes to me, and this is another thing, people talk about trust all the time, and trusts are long documents, right? So if you come to me and you just want a will, that's one thing. But if you tell me you want to create a trust, now we're talking 20 pages.
Right.
And it has to have particulars. Right. If this happens, then this. If that happens, then that. Right. If that person doesn't live, then we do this. It's going to be divided 4 ways, but if all those 4 people die, then, so we're going to be writing, so it's more money.
Right.
So
explain to our audience, if you can, the difference between a will and a trust. Because I think some people think they're one and the same, and I think there's some some distinctions there.
Yeah, well, the will, basic last will and testament, that's the document, and it generally says what your wishes are. I want my house to go, my business to go, and just that. Now, in the will, you also generally say things like your funeral arrangements, your personal property, and things like that. And it's generally pretty straightforward.
Right.
Okay. The trust can be more extensive, and a lot of people, I don't know where it comes from, but a lot of people will call and say, I want to do a revocable trust.
Okay.
A revocable trust is just a trust that transfers assets into it. It's sort of fictitious, kind of along the lines of a corporation.
Okay.
Because it doesn't protect you from anything. If somebody which is what some trusts are used for, to protect assets. But if somebody was trying to sue you and the asset was in a revocable trust, they could still sue you.
Okay.
But for example, the easiest example that people could relate to is you take your home, you put it in the trust. There's specific provisions so that your homestead continues to apply.
Got it.
Because there's an issue there with transferring ownership to a trust. And then you say, while I'm alive, I want to be in charge. I'm the trustee. I want to be in charge, and I'm going to decide, and I can use this trust, these assets for my whatever. But when I pass away, or when my spouse and I both pass away, then we want this. That's all in the trust, and now there's no probate.
Got
You
it.
don't have to go to court. With the will, and just using that example of the house, you could do the same thing with the business. If you said in the will, I want this house to go to, you still have to go to court because it's not transferred.
Ah. Okay.
Right.
So will is not non-transferable.
Well, it's not transferable. It's that the transfer hasn't happened. It's just an instruction
Just
to.
an instruction too. Got it.
Exactly,
Okay,
exactly.
okay.
And that's the same thing with the business. Of course, with the business, it depends on the form. So if it's a corporation, a regular corporation, you have shares.
Right.
So the shares are what are going to pass.
Right.
Right. That's what's going to be inherited. LLCs, different thing. It's your interest.
Right.
And hopefully, whatever your if you're the one of the managing members or whatever the operating agreement says in terms of how it's divided, but your interest is sort of passed to the estate.
Okay.
And now the other people have to reorganize. But if the documents say, this is what I want to happen with my interest. Now, of course, if you're the sole member, because there are single member LLCs, if you're the sole member, all you have to say is, I want this to happen. If there are multiple members, now there has to be an agreement as to what the documents are going to say. And very interestingly, if you're sole proprietor, guess what? That business can't continue. Because the sole proprietor, right, then registers as a, what do you call it? As a doing business as, right? But that's still the individual.
Right.
So if that person passes away,
There's no more business.
there's no more business. And in most cases, you have to petition the court to allow the business to continue past past the estate or during the estate, because there's no entity.
Wow.
Because that person is not alive anymore. And then partnership also, you have a limited partnership or a general partnership, and that would have to be in the documents. What's going to happen with your share, and who's going to take over, and all those things. And the challenge is that I'm just as, I was, not anymore, but I was just as responsible or guilty as everybody else, that you get the book and you don't have time to read it.
Right. Right.
So did I tell you the story about the guy with the LLC?
Can you tell that story one more time? It was fascinating.
So so this particular gentleman, I will just say maybe an immigrant, came to the United States, working hard. He was involved in real estate. He kept buying these properties, and he would put each one like in an LLC. So he, let's say, had 6 properties, and there were 4 LLCs. And another thing that he did was that they were in the Section 8 program.
Oh, wow.
Which is an additional complication, in case you guys don't know, because anytime an owner changes with Section 8, there's a process. And if he's getting his LLC paid, before the checks coming from Section 8 can change, the ownership has to change. So if it was this LLC or his name, all the paperwork has to be redone before Section 8 is going to reissue checks. And so in his case, they could not find any of the books. He had 4 or 5 LLCs and there were no books to be found. No management agreement, no operating agreement, and all the, let's say, the Section 8 information, his account numbers for Section 8, none of that information could be found. So everything was sort of like a research project. His wife was, in this particular case, going to be the executor or the personal representative because she was married to him and she was the mother of all his children, so there wasn't any dispute about that. So she, along with us, had to work to sort of back in to all the information, update the corporate records, because now he, who had been like the managing member, the registered agent,
he was the renaissance of his own business.
If every single thing, it was him. And now all those documents had to be updated. And this was the most difficult part, the bank accounts. Right? So, and he had multiple bank accounts and multiple mortgages coming from different bank accounts, right? So you kind of have to figure out what is paying what and where it's going. And, and banks, rightfully so, are even when you get the proper court documentation, the bank is nervous. Like, who are you? What do we know? They want to make sure. Because if they release money inappropriately, now they're on the hook. So now all these banks, you have to go to the bank, take the corporate documents, take the new corporate documents, right? Because the old corporate documents say he's president, vice president, or managing member or whatever. No, now we have new corporate documents saying that she is the... And go in
so
for them to
make sure that that's real.
Yes, so it's updated and
right.
real. And something else that happened in that case, the wife happened to be in Georgia, and she was dealing with one of the banks that's a national bank. So she went to the bank in Georgia, and the bank in Georgia said, no, we can't do anything because those documents are from Florida. Right? Which makes sense because they can't authenticate. They don't know what it is. So, it's little details, and it took a lot of time and a lot of money to put that together, because that's what we were doing, putting it together from the bank accounts to Section 8 to the corporate documents. Everything had to be put back together, and there were passwords. Cards, every single card, the passwords. He had money in Cash App. He had money all kinds of little places. And another thing he had, aside from his businesses, was he even had money in unclaimed property. Florida's unclaimed property. Right. Yes, it turned out that he had money there as well.
And so this is one of those cases where it's maybe beneficially better financially to pay up front.
Yes.
Than the back end.
Yes, that one definitely was costly. That was very, very costly for everybody involved. In the end, the family had to get a management company because they had let's say 6, 7 properties, which he, God bless his soul, was kind of running around doing everything. And that's what we were talking about in the beginning, because, you're trying to make it, you buy one property, you do this, and he's probably in his study with, he knows exactly what he's doing. Right. But he never had the opportunity or never thought about sitting down and putting it together in a way that anybody would be able to put it together. And so it turned out to be more costly.
As I'm listening to this this story you're telling us, I'm thinking that when you're in business, you want things to go well. That you're in business because first of all you want to make money.
Yes.
But then you have a product that that the community could use and grow from and benefit from as well. However, in order for you to work with a peace of mind and to know everything is fine, he didn't really have to sit down his wife and say, "Hey, I want you to understand this, understand this." If it was done properly, she wouldn't even have to know. He wouldn't have to have educated her on that.
Right.
It would have automatically happened.
Everything would have rolled. Everything would have rolled.
Everything would have rolled.
Right.
So I think that's one of the important things as business owners when we want to leave businesses and we want to build them for our family and our family to take over them after we're gone. These are the things we have to keep in mind or to consider when we're doing these steps to make sure that, okay, wait a minute. If anything should happen, I want them to be able to successfully keep the business going without any interruption.
Exactly.
I want this business to go straight through.
Right.
How do I do that? And
Right.
this is what you're talking about today, which is
Absolutely.
so important for them to set this up so in the long run that it won't affect the business. Think about this. Your family's already going through grief. They've lost you. You know, they're devastated. And so no one at that point in time is thinking clearly
No.
in the first place.
Not at all.
So now it probably takes you a good month or two to even get your bearings straight
Right.
on the realistic facts that you've lost a loved one that was the sole provider.
Yes. In many cases, yes.
By that time, now
Right.
you're trying to figure out all of this stuff because things are happening in your house. Life doesn't stop.
No.
And now you're trying to figure this out. Why have your loved ones go through that?
Yes.
When you can consider in the front end of that, adding that to your business plan
Exactly.
to make sure that it's done.
Absolutely. I have a term that I use and it's called dying well, right? I just have seen it. There are a few instances where I consider that this person has died well, meaning, you come to the planet, you live, and at some point you're leaving. And there's a way to do that. I mean, obviously you could have an accident, there could be all kinds of things, but there's a way to leave if you don't die unexpectedly. Right. There's a way of leaving well.
Right.
And, most of us are scared of death because we don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to happen one way or the other. And so you have to sort of get comfortable with that. Now, one of the things that I have also observed is that people who are not accustomed to generational wealth are not accustomed to spending to organize things. People who are accustomed to wealth know that I need to have an estate plan and I need to make sure that there's a trust or whatever the case might be. So if you are a person who is just coming, let's say you're an immigrant. Let's say you just came to America and now all your dreams have come true. You own your own business and this and that and the other. Right. The question is, how are you going to make that sustainable for the next generation? Yes. What do you put in place? And are you willing to spend? Because if you call me and, you want to do something, but you don't want to spend the money, I can't help you because I have somebody over here who is paying me to make sure that they get what they need. Exactly. There's always a value exchange. So if you get to that point and you say, you know what, I have made money. I have been able to raise a family. I've been able to buy a house. I have a business that I'm running. And now I'm getting to 60, 65, whatever the age is. And you haven't looked at this, then, you're taking the risk that in addition to losing you, your family is going to suffer. And it's a very uncomfortable thing also because I find that when people call, after the death and we're talking about a probate and things like that, most of the times, male or female, people don't know who to trust.
Right. Exactly.
Because they're like, who is this person and can I trust?
I don't want them to know my business.
Right. They don't want to tell. Right. They don't, they don't want all their stuff out. And there's so much. And then if your business stuff is not together, right? Because in that particular case that I was talking about, how do you get a hold of the accounting? Yes. Right? How do you get a hold of the accounting that he was doing? Right. It was in the computer. But nobody could get it. Okay.
No passwords.
There are no passwords. There was no access. He had programs that he was apparently running for managing the business, but nobody had passwords. And then at the same time, and I wasn't involved in this, but the taxes had to be done, right? So you got to put the numbers together, the information together to be able to do the taxes. So it's a lot of stuff that you could really save yourself and your family, because I always say, you don't want to be dying and go, oh my God, I didn't do this, right? It's like,
Right,
oh my
exactly.
God, if I had only,
Exactly.
you know, I meant to do that, right? Because, so if you know that certain things are, I did leave the passwords, there is this, you know, as you're leaving, let's
Right,
just say,
right.
you're like, oh, I did put that together
Right.
and whatever. Now you can go in peace,
Right.
whatever
right.
the circumstance.
In the middle of now, you can't say,
Yeah.
wait, Lord, wait.
Yes.
I forgot to do this.
Exactly.
You know, like, no.
It's too late.
It's too late.
It's
Right.
way too late, and now your family's going to have to put it together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, when it comes to business owners, does it matter the size of the business as far as the type of estate planning that they consider? Would that come into account, or small to medium to large corporations is all the same?
Well, corporations is different because remember in a regular C corp, right? We're talking about shares. So all they're doing is the shares are let's say the person who's passed away owned the shares, it's an asset of the estate, and that's going to pass to whoever their heirs are. But in terms, for sure, with a S corp or a sole proprietorship, doing as a DBA, now we're talking about that business belonging to that individual and what you would want to happen with basically what will end up being the assets of the business. So there's a specific plan.
Got it.
And then if you're an LLC or you're a partnership, again, it's not the number of people. It just depends on, number one, what you want, how many partners, and what those partners want to do with their shares should something happen to them, and also how they want the business to continue to run. Because if you're let's say it's an LLC and you're one of the managing members, and there are multiple managing members, what happens, for example, if one of the managing members passes away?
Right. I was going to get to that.
Right.
Thank you. Right.
Who takes, what's the procedure?
Right. Exactly.
Right? Which in the books, generally it says, unanimous consent or majority or some such language. But those are the things that you need to look at. Is it a majority or is it unanimous? Or what is it that we need in order for a change to happen?
Right.
Yeah. So the size in terms of number of, let's say, employees is not important. It's more the structure.
Right.
Is it an LLC? Is it an S corp? Is it or a sole proprietorship? Is it a partnership or a limited partnership as well? Those are the things that matter.
Okay. Wow. This is so great information for business owners, because I know with my brother being a business owner himself, a restaurant, he was scared to do this. He finally did it, but he was very nervous about, first of all, the money, how much it cost. But once he did it, it was like, wow, I'm so glad I got that. I got that done.
Yes.
And so when he passed away, my sister-in-law, they were fine.
Right.
The business carried on. She eventually, years after, dissolved the business, but it was her choice.
Right.
She didn't have to
Run and do that.
Right. So I understand the importance of that, which is I'm glad why you're here to have this talk.
There was one other thing, I think we were talking about it before we got started, and that I think I have always thought it was amazing, and that is key person life insurance, right? So you have liability insurance, right? Somebody falls or things like that. If you're a corporation, you have officers and directors insurance in case one of the officers or directors does something bad. So you have that. And then key person life insurance, because if the main person passes away, it's going to take a minute to sort of.
Right.
So I think that in that estate planning process, that people who are in the position, because obviously everybody's not in a position,
Right.
but why would you not get key person life insurance as a consideration? Right. Yes. And of course, the major companies do, big corporations do. But I think, even if you are running a relatively small business, you can have a policy that would help the business transition in your absence, unexpected absence. Yeah. So I just want to throw that out there for consideration.
That is great. That is great information. One of the things I'm so glad about doing this show is to have individuals like you come in who can give information and resources to businesses who are afraid,
Yes.
may not know, may skip that step because they had no idea that they needed or how important
Yes.
it really is,
Right.
or the ramifications if
Yes.
they didn't have it.
Yes.
So I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you,
To
thank you.
really bring this awareness to our public.
Yeah.
One more thing that I'd like to ask you is when a business comes, especially to your office, and they sit down in front of you and they say, okay, I've started a business. It's a small business. I have 1 to 2 employees. But I'm ready for this business to grow and everything. But when it does, I want to make sure if anything happens to me, that they're okay.
Right.
There are many considerations for them to go in that direction. What is one of the most common considerations that they have?
Well, I would say this. First of all, the main thing behind this is what's going to happen to my loved ones, right? Now, the business is being saved, right? You want to make sure the business is going to be okay so that it's sustainable, right? It continues to exist if that's what you want. And so that the employees obviously are not displaced because you're gone. But the most important thing is, let's just presume I have a wife or a husband and I have kids. So when I speak to people, the first thing I say is usually, are you married? Are you single? Do you have kids? What are you trying to accomplish?
Got it.
What are you trying to accomplish? Oh, I'm trying to make sure that my kids will be okay, that my kids will go to college, that the business will continue, that my wife won't have to worry, or my husband won't have to worry, whatever. The main question and the questions that I ask are directed at focusing in on what we're trying to accomplish with, in your particular situation. So the documents, definitely go find your books, people. Find out where that book is with all that information. But the books are the thing the things that will guide you in terms of what is going to happen when you're not here. And at the same time, in those books, you can modify it. Which, by the way, I'm not here as a business attorney, right? So you can get a business attorney. You can look at, if you have a C Corp, right? You can modify the bylaws, the articles. You can do whatever you need to make sure that what you want to happen happens after you're gone.
Okay, good. So it's a good thing that the business owner have an clearly defined end goal.
Exactly.
And so that would set them up for a couple of things that they consider to move forward.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
So, well, again, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you. Let me ask this, look into the camera and tell our audience how, if they wanted to contact you to get more information, how do they do that?
Well, you can call my office here in Miramar. It's 954-874-1736. It's offices of Olivia Benson. And what we do is we offer a 15-minute consultation just to have a general discussion about what you think you need or might need. And after you do that initial consultation, then we have you fill out some forms to see what you actually have. And then after that, we have a 1-hour consultation, and there's a charge for that consultation. 1 hour of time is $350 for 1 hour. And at that time, we can really get into, okay, this is what you need. And if you're a business, one of the things that I will say to if you have a business that you're trying to include, one of the things that I will say to you is, where's the book? Right? Where's the book?
We talked about that.
Where's the book? You have the corporate documents. What do they say?
Right.
So those are the things that we get into in terms of the details of your business, and then we incorporate that with your goals for your family.
Well, thank you so much for coming. I
Thank
appreciate
you for having me.
Again, to our listening audience, please visit our website, miramarfl.gov. You'll find more information there that you can get involved with the city, what the city is doing. Also, register as a participant in our Business Pulse. That's right, Miramar Business Pulse, where you can find out all the things that we have to offer and information we have for business businesses throughout the city of Miramar. That is Miramar.fl/Business Pulse. Also, we also have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful opportunity for you to help our community and our businesses. We have a Shop Local program, Open Rewards, it's called. Download the app, Open Rewards Shop Local Miramar. Every time you shop at a small business store that is participating in the program, the city will pay you 10% cash back on everything you buy and purchase. So we want to sow into your business and make sure that your business grows in the city of Miramar, but also we want to encourage you to shop with our small businesses. So again, I say to you, like all before, have a great day, be kind, but most importantly, stay connected.
Thanks for listening to the Business Connect podcast. Be sure to visit miramarfl.gov/podcast to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our fantastic bonus content. We would love for you to subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes. Until next time.